November 2000. In a parking lot in Chelsea, Massachusetts, someone finds dismembered human remains, a discovery that will take 26 years to fully explain. Police cordon off the scene within hours. Detectives process what's there, photograph everything, and start the kind of investigation that usually has one central question: who did this? This isn't that kind of mystery. Not yet, anyway. Chelsea sits just across the water from Boston, barely 2 square miles, dense, working class, one of the most densely populated cities in New England. It's the kind of place where, in theory, everybody notices when a teenager goes missing. That history is about to make this one of the stranger cold cases in Massachusetts. The killer is identified fast. Within days, investigators have their man, and he does something unusual. He confesses. He's convicted, sentenced. By any normal measure, the case is closed. The whodunit took barely any time at all, a rarity in true crime, where most of these stories spend years chasing the killer, not the victim. But there's a problem no confession can solve. Investigators know exactly who killed her. They have no idea who she was. He either won't say, or genuinely doesn't know. Either way, the one person who could hand them her name isn't giving it up. With no ID, no missing persons match, nothing, she goes into the system under the only name anyone can give her: Chelsea Jane Doe. A case that's solved and unsolved at the same time. Filed as closed on paper, wide open in every way that matters. Somewhere this girl had a life. Court records and case notes would later describe someone who loved to draw, who loved to dance, who'd been a cheerleader, the kind of ordinary teenage detail that, without a name attached, means nothing to anyone reading the file. None of that made it into the news at the time. There was no name to attach it to, just a case number and a killer already behind bars. No vigil, no missing poster campaign, no community search. The case simply had nowhere to go. Years pass, then more years. Somewhere, a family that hasn't heard from a teenage girl in decades keeps wondering. In the early 2000s, missing persons databases weren't linked the way they are now. A Jane Doe in one state and a missing persons report in another could sit for years without anyone ever connecting the two. The file doesn't close. It can't, not with a victim still unnamed. It just goes quiet, one more unsolved identity in a system that, even today, has thousands of them. The break doesn't come from a tip or a confession. It comes from a lab. In 2023, forensic genetic genealogy company Othram takes on the case and builds a full DNA profile from what's left of the degraded remains, genetic material that's been sitting in evidence storage for over 2 decades. A profile is not a name. It's a string of genetic markers, useless without something to compare it to. Traditional police DNA testing checks a sample against Cody's, the FBI's criminal database, looking for an exact match to someone already on file. That only works if the person is already in the system. For an unidentified victim with no criminal record, Cody's has nothing to offer. So the real work is just beginning. Here's what makes this method different from a normal criminal investigation. Nobody's hunting a suspect. Investigators start building out a family tree from the DNA working out or through public genealogy databases, the same kind of sites people use to find long-lost relatives, looking for anyone who shares even a small piece of her genetic code. Slow, methodical work, cross-referencing distant cousins, narrowing branches, ruling people out one at a time. This is the same broad technique that identified the Golden State Killer suspect in 2018 and has since helped put names to hundreds of unidentified Jane and John Does across the country, in what's become one of the biggest shifts in cold case investigation in a generation. Eventually, the tree narrows to something specific, a likely sibling. Investigators reach out, and the FBI runs a confirmatory DNA comparison to make sure the science is right before anyone gets a phone call that changes their life. It's a match, or brother out there who has no idea his sister's case is about to break open after 26 years. On June 3, 2026, Chelsea Police, the FBI, and the District Attorney's Office stand at a podium to announce what genetic genealogy found. It's the kind of press conference that, for most of the last 2.5 decades, nobody expected to happen. For the first time in almost 26 years, she has her name back: Tiffany Bradley. 16 years old when she disappeared in November 2000, the same age, more or less, as the case itself. Somewhere, a family that's spent decades not knowing finally gets an answer, and with it, the unbearable confirmation of what they may have feared for half their lives. There's no version of this news that isn't devastating, but after this long, even a devastating answer is different from no answer at all. The killer spent 26 years in prison already knowing her name. It took her own family that long to get it back, a gap that says less about the investigation and more about how far forensic science has had to catch up. Tiffany Bradley can finally be buried as herself, not as a case number. But her file is really just one candle in a much bigger dark room. Namus, the National Database of Unidentified Remains, currently lists more than 15,000 open cases just like hers, each one somebody's daughter, brother, or parent. Genetic genealogy didn't just solve a murder here, the murder was already solved. It restored a name. And across the country, at labs like Othram and non-profits like the dnadoeproject, that's the harder, slower work still happening, not chasing killers, but giving the nameless their names back, one file at a time.